So you hired a team member and a few short weeks later, they're not a good fit. And you're like, oh my gosh, I just spent all this time investing in the interview process. I poured out my values, I communicated everything to them, and they said they were great and they would love working here. And so here they are, and now it's a complete flop. That is so frustrating. It used to happen to me very consistently as I was working through the very first years of our company, trying to become a better leader, trying to grow our company. I was so busy focusing on all the other things that we needed to do in our organization to help us to grow, that when I would get a good team member or a good candidate in the door, hoping that they would be the next amazing person to help me grow our organization, I would just find out a couple weeks later they really couldn't do the work that I had assigned to them. And so I want to help you in this video to be able to eliminate that. My name is Jason Ellinger. I'm the CEO of Package Translations. I've been an entrepreneur for more than 15 years, scaling our business, scaling other businesses, and helping them prosper. And more than anything else, it's specialized in the area of really growing, uniting, aligning a team around a clear vision and helping them move forwards with perfect lockstep values and a clear vision of what we're all trying to accomplish together, making sure that everyone is pulling at their levels with the same intensity. And so I want to share that with you today. And in particular, I want to talk about the 90-day probation period. I just did a webinar talking about how to hire incredibly well. And it takes a lot of time. So I understand the investment is large. And if you want to know more, just go watch that video on hiring. We're not going to talk about that part in this video because I want to talk about what happens directly after hiring that's going to help you win. I have been leading now for more than, goodness, at this point, 20 years. And as I've grown through the different trainings that I have done, through the books that I've read, through the practice where I've tried and failed, I've learned a lot of lessons along the way, and I cannot emphasize this enough. It's around the area of clarity. Now, I'll get into it in a minute, and I know it sounds a little bit basic, but it should sound basic, and I want it to sound basic so that you can actually take it and use it in the days ahead as you work on integrating your team members into your organization. After personally onboarding dozens and dozens of team members and helping other team members onboard team members and other companies and business leaders onboard team members, I've learned exactly how to create clarity, communicate our values, and make sure that when the team member comes on, they're the right fit. So stick around for the remainder of this video where I'm going to unpack that. And if you like this kind of content or if it's helpful to you, please like, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell for more content just like this. I post multiple times per week around the subjects of leadership, team unification, vision, and the forward movement scaling of your organization. So let's talk about some of the main problems that you have when you've just finished the interview process and now we're going into launching the team member into our company. What are some of the main problems that we see right at that juncture that we can eliminate or that we can work through very quickly to make sure that we can either move on back to the interview process or really help that team member integrate very, very deeply into our organization. One of the biggest problems that I see leaders do, because we're busy, we've got tons of stuff on our plate. We've just gone through a lengthy interview process. And now we got, okay, you're good. You said you could work here. We think you can work here. Here's your contract. Sign that, fill out your W-2, and let's get to work. And they just go straight into the work without any more explanation of what the company is about and why, and how it operates, and what the systems in the organization are. And they're like, okay, you'll just learn it along the way. So many leaders make a mistake in this area, and this is one that we can eliminate. We'll talk about that in a minute. The next problem I see is that after leaders get the team member in the organization, they feel a lack of alignment because they're not aligned. The team members feel a lack of alignment, and the leaders feel like they're not aligned with the team members, and they're exactly right because they haven't spent the time doing the activities necessary to make sure that they're integrated and aligned and can push forward together. Okay, that's the second problem I've seen. The third top problems that I've seen is before a team member is there even 3 months, the leader already starts to experience big problems. And they take those problems, they're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? So what do? They go home and tell their spouse about it, and the team member's not even aware of it. So this is a big problem that has to be solved, and I'm going to talk about that also a little bit later. Fourth problem is the team member actually feels incredibly frustrated, which is terrible. In the first 90 days, no team member should be frustrated in any stretch of the imagination because it's the honeymoon period. It should be the most awesome and energized period of the whole process if working together. As you connect and you bring them into your organization, it should be one that's like incredibly energizing, a visionary period, and one that just helps them to fully embrace everything that you're about. And when you don't do the necessary things that cause that to happen, they get frustrated and you get frustrated ultimately. And that might even end in separation or firing or them leaving because you guys can't connect. And at this stage, the team members, they don't feel like they have the tools to win in your organization because they don't have the tools to win in your organization. So it's your job to fix that as a leader, as an owner. I'm sorry that it's your job, but at the same time, you chose to be the owner of this thing and the leader of this thing, so it's your job. Everything rises and falls on leadership. There was an old Jewish tradition back in the Bible days where they would take a new king or a to-be king and they would anoint his head with oil. And they would pour the oil down on his head and it would go down on his head and it would flow through his hair and down on his beard and drip over him, like anointing him with oil, symbolizing that as goes the king, so goes the kingdom. So as you lead, so will your team be led. And that's the connection I want you to get with what I'm talking about here today is as you lead, so your team will be led. And now so many of us, we're not born leaders. We have to learn this. We have to learn this stuff, how to actually be a great leader, how to engage a team, how to align a team, how to unify them around a vision and charge forward together. How to do that. It doesn't come natural to us. So this is part of the stuff that I'm teaching and working and helping leaders see and work through. It's one of the things that's been the greatest blessing in my life, being able to be impacted by an environment of a team members that actually have those characteristics. And as such, we want to share that with the rest of the world. We want to share that with other teams that would like to be aligned and be able to move forward together, creating an amazing outcome, making dreams come true in your life and in mine. What happens directly after you hire? So we've signed the contract, we filled out the W-2. It's like, all right, this dude or this lady is coming to work with our company. First, what we do is we create clarity. I think everything in business is some way derived from clarity or being clear or being poorly or being unclear and not communicating in a way that actually connects with your team members. In fact, the motto of our company, the power to understand, we create clarity that helps people move their lives forwards. That's for our translation company. We actually create clarity. We believe very deeply in making sure that every person is clear, exactly clear. We believe even to be unclear is to be unkind. So if you're saying stuff in a way that sounds nice, but you're actually hoping the person understands that they need to get their butt moving and actually do their job, then you're being unkind. So in any case, we need to get to this point of clarity with our team members. And don't jump off the video right here because now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of this video. So how do we create this clarity that our team members need to make sure that they're an excellent fit right off the bat and that they get integrated into our organization? First and foremost, that Monday when they come into your office, you hired them on Friday, they come in on Monday and you're like, all right, what do? We do a values dump. We get very, very intentional about all of our values. And we go through, if you have to spend the entire day or 2 days talking about and explaining what your values mean to this team member, it will be well worth it. First of all, a values dump. That is the first and foremost thing that you do when the team members come in. You don't start them trained to get their job, do their job. You train them why their job matters. Why is it important? What is the driving force behind why you actually do this work? And you explain that in great detail. You give examples. You do at least 3 to 4 sessions on your values in the first 2 weeks of them being in your organization. You'll get to the training and that's going to be part of the work. But first and foremost, you bring them on and you create crystal clarity around why you work. And if you don't have clarity around why you work, you got to get clear. That's your job as a leader. And I know I'm putting a lot of weight on the leader, but again, everything rises and falls on the leader. Just like they did in the Bible's day. They pour the oil down over the head and it dripped down on the beard. As goes the king, so goes the kingdom. You have to be the leader your company needs you to be in order to be able to win over time. So you have to create perfect clarity around why you're doing the work you're doing. If you're just doing the work to make money, well, you need to be very clear about that. You're probably not watching this video if you're doing that, because I don't believe that you should just be in business just to make money. So you should have a mission-driven organization, and I'm going to be talking about that more in videos to come. So as you bring them into your organization, you do a culture dump. What is it that you do? Why is it that you do it? And how do you do it? And these are all core values. These are values that you have talked about and you have hammered out with your team in advance. And I have a series that talks about this, about answering the 6 questions that matter in business. And you can go back and watch those videos. I'm going to be doing some more clarity around these subjects in the future, because it is a complicated and challenging subject to work through for many, many people out there, because it has to do with basically purpose. What, why do we do this stuff? Why do we do anything? And so you, as a leader, defining that very clearly for your team member first and foremost means that you have to know it, and that you have to know it well enough to be able to impart it to your team member very clearly in a way that they can understand it, and then that they can be inspired by it, latch onto it, and deeply embody it. Okay, so that sounds like a tall charge, because it is a tall charge, because it is a challenging thing that we do in business, and that's called leadership. And so that's one of our core functions as leaders, to make sure that every team member at every level knows why they do what they do. And the first thing that you must do if you're bringing a new team member into your organization, after you've gone through the hiring process and done it exceptionally well, is to go start this 90-day probationary period. I don't think hiring is completed until the probationary period is done, but for communication's sake, you start after you've gotten through the hiring process, in the interview process, and you've got them into your organization. And now we start a 90-day probationary period, where the first thing we do in that probationary period is say, all right, this is who we are. This is why we do what we do. And this is how we do it. This is not a 30-minute conversation. This is a long and very detailed explanation that you have with your team member, a dialogue actually that you have with your team member, helping them to understand very clearly why you do what we do. And there could be emotions that come out of this. Like, I've had team members come into my organization and start crying some part during this process. It depends on the team member, of course, but they start crying at some point of the process, because they're like, I have never worked in an organization that actually has that value, that actually intentionally says that to their team members and demonstrates the reason why they work so profoundly and actually means it. So when we do this in our company, I participate in a lot of the making sure the team member understands the values, because if they don't understand the values and embody them, they will fail. Ultimately, they will fail. So as a leader of our organization, I want to make sure that every single person coming into our organization is crystal clear about why we exist and why their work matters. So that is the first thing you do. Before you even get to the functionality, work processes, and the training, you do that. All right, next. We talk about our policies and procedures and make sure there's alignment. Now, what I mean on this is, we talked about things during the interview process. Everything's kind of hunky-dory. Everything seems to make sense. All the schedules and plans. So yeah, we'll do that. I can for sure do that. Everybody puts their best foot forward and says, obviously, all of the right things for the interview process. And then you get into the actual schedule of the work and like, okay, so I need you to come to this meeting on Monday or Thursday or Fridays at 3 p.m. We're going to talk about this content. And because you're part of this team, you have to attend this meeting and that meeting on these days at these specific times with no variation, even if you're a virtual team member. And this has to be clearly communicated. Again, driving to clarity, saying like, this is how you're going to have to do things here if you're going to be here. Now, so many people make the mistake of like, they get into this part of the conversation and they're like, well, that actually doesn't work well for me. And this day doesn't work well for me. I'm going to be picking up my kids at that time, or I'm going to be dropping off my kids at that time. I've got soccer practice at this time. Or you're like, okay, we have to align on how we work. Otherwise you can't work here. And the leaders make the mistake of, well, we went through the hiring process already. We got to this point. Maybe we can make an adaptation for this team member. And what that's going to do is you're going to, without wanting to, communicate that, okay, everything can kind of be adapted to your needs, to the team member. And that's very dangerous, a very dangerous place to start for you and your team member. Now, I was like this at the beginning. I wanted to be very accommodating altogether in our company, make sure that our lives and our business and there was balance and everything was great. And I soon found out that I had a monkey mess all over the place, because I was accommodating for this person here and accommodating that person here. And this person felt that was unfair. And this person felt that was unfair. And all over the place, people were getting upset because I was trying to accommodate everyone. And what happened when I stopped trying to accommodate everyone and said, this is how we do it, and this is where you will need to be at this time, and with these team members, and with me at this time, and we will do this, this, and this on these days, and this is how we process these things, and these are how all of the functions work. When I did that, and the person said, well, I kind of need this, like, could we move this time? And I was like, no, this is a solid time, we can't move that time. When I did that, the entire team was so much happier. So now when people come onto our organization and we talk about, like, this is what we've got going on, I actually already start to prime this during the interview process. So go back and watch that video if you haven't seen it already. Or but in any case, you get to this stage and you very clearly communicate what your policies and procedures are, how you do business, and then give them the opportunity to completely align with that. And that alignment, when they come in and like, okay, this is how we work here, and them accepting that and then just building their life around it, will be so much better for them and for the business as you move forwards. And it will make sure that you're communicating to the other team members that as people come into our organization, we are fair, completely fair across the board. We're not accommodating for this person here and that person there and that person up there and changing the rules for this person here. No, we operate under these values, and everybody operates in this way. And so that helps them all to feel that unified fairness, and for you to be very clear that, okay, yes, we do have our lives. All of us have lives, by the way. I mean, I've got 8 kids and my wife, and we've got all that life happening around everything, and the business is operating. And this person, maybe has 2 or 3 kids, and they're coming to your company and they're working and they've got that life happening. We all have to manage the life and the business part. So, but this is the way our business has to operate in order for us to be profitable and successful. So you have to come in and operate the same way. Now, I know maybe a lot of companies are really good at this step, and you're probably going to find a few of these steps that you're really good at, but you're also probably going to find something that you might not be so good at, like the previous one I mentioned about the values communication part. And I think that's going to be a very helpful nugget for you to be able to take into your company and help you to build your future. Okay, so the next thing, to enhance and further deepen the understanding of the values, the systems, the thought processes, or the belief systems that we have in our organization. Assign books. Now, what I do is I assign books like EntreLeadership, or the 5 dysfunctions of a team, or the ideal team player, or the go-giver, or the go-getter, or who moved my cheese. These books, they're all assigned. I give about 2, maybe 3 if the person's a super fast reader each month. So you have a 90-day period. They're going to get 2 books per month for that 90-day period minimum to be able to work through and to be able to learn a deeper understanding from somebody else's mouth of the values that you have, the characteristics that you want to see in your organization. And you get to choose the books. I'm going to post with this video a list of books that I use that we choose from, but you get to choose those books and you assign those during the 90-day period. So I'd recommend at least 2 books per month, and you can give them a little bit of time each day at the end of their workday to read. And it's just like, okay, so you've been assigned this book. We need to make sure you've got it done by the end of this month. So you need to make sure that you get this book done in the next 2 weeks and that book done in the next 2 weeks. So we need to make sure that you're having time to read this. So part of it you can read on our time, and the other part you need to read on your time, maybe at home or somewhere as you're going through the onboarding process, as you're going through the 90-day process. You need to be taking and reading these books, because they're going to give you a deeper understanding of why we do the things we do here and how we expect our team members to behave. And so not just coming from your mouth or the mouths of your leaders, but also from the pages of these books, helping them to really get a deep understanding of why you do what you do. And I'm a big proponent of reading. I believe if you're not reading, you're not leading. In the past few months, I've read probably 5 books at this point over the past 2 months. And I think everybody should be reading it, and it greatly enhances our ability to understand more comprehensively a value or a system or just another thought process and idea. And so having those books assigned for your team members during the 90-day period is vital. Make sure you take care and do that step. And again, the book should be assigned about something that explains a value that matters to you and your company. And you want the team member to really embody that. And you communicate that when you give the team member the book. Like, this is a book about this, and you need to have read it, by the way. If you don't assign books that you haven't read, it just makes you look hypocritical. because then you can't even have a conversation around it. So after they've read the book, they need to return the book, and then you need to have a conversation about what was in the book to help them make sure that they understood the principles of the book, the concept of the book, and how that connects to you and your organization. I know this sounds like a lot of work, right? It is a lot of work, and that's part of leading well. So the next thing you need to do in this 90-day probationary period. Now, we've talked about one-on-ones, and I've talked about them in another video, but do weekly check-ins. At this stage, we're starting the process of really getting connected to this team member, and you need to do a weekly check-in where basically it's just a very casual meeting, like, hey, all right, maybe you do it on a Friday, or maybe you do it on a Monday, or maybe just whatever day works for you and your organization. Could be any day. But a casual meeting where you and new team member, you just take 30 minutes and like, okay, so how's the week going? What are things looking like? How are you feeling? How are you integrating into the team? Are you feeling comfortable? Do you feel safe? Do you feel like you're understanding the values? Is there something you're missing? And you do that once per week for each week of the 90-day period. So that's a weekly check-in. It's not hard. It's not complicated. Just a casual conversation where you're connecting with the team member. You're specifically setting aside 30 minutes, like, okay, anything goes. What are you feeling? What are you thinking? How are things going? And, a lot of times in this one, you'll hear, well, I'm feeling a little bit of overwhelmed. There's so much information to learn. There's so many systems to understand, and the values and all these things. It's just like a lot. And you're like, yeah, you need to reaffirm that, yeah, it is a lot. Coming into a new relation, you're like essentially building a new relationship. And so there's so many dynamics around that. It's a little challenging and kind of daunting. And just acknowledging that, and sometimes affirming that with your team member is very, very comforting. And it helps them to know that ultimately you care, you understand, and helps you also to understand some of the stresses that they're under. And maybe they'll even share some things about their life and what's going on that can help guide your thoughts on how you can be maybe enhancing communication or helping the team member in some way, shape, or form to make sure they're integrating successfully into your organization. All right. This is something that I want to just kind of emphasize. I have been doing 90-day probationary periods for new hires for a really long time now, like 7-8 years. And at this stage, I've learned a very key rule that I really need to be paying attention. So about my company, we grew. I had just a couple team members. I have like 10 team members. Now I have 16 team members in our organization. And as we grew, I had to assign other leaders to help me with the onboarding process, the training processes, the communication and value process at different places at different times. And as you grow, that will inevitably be a part of what you do, because everybody gets more busy, everybody gets different roles, and everybody has different things on their plate, and you're juggling different tasks at different times. So you're going to have to involve other people in the process. But what I learned is at 45 days, it's kind of like our company is has a 45-day rule. I don't know how else to explain it other than the 45-day rule. That if the team member is going to win, is they're going to be successful in your organization, at about 45 days, you'll know. They will be very latched onto your values. They will start feeling much more comfortable with the schedule, with the process for the work, with the technology, with the team, and everything will start to feel much more unified and clicking at 45 days, or it won't. And if it doesn't, and if you see great dissonance or great variations in how they feel about the core values, or whether or not they embody those core values, or whether or not they're able to connect with their team members, or whether or not their specific leader is able to really resonate with them and build a relationship, or whether or not they're able to communicate to you as a leader, as the owner of the company, and whether or not you feel ability to connect with them and alignment. 45 days is kind of the test. You'll be able to see in this team member if they're integrating into your organization or not. And if they're not, you need to pay very close attention. You need to find out why, and then you need to find out if it's time to part ways. Because the probationary period is 90 days for a reason. It gives you the opportunity to really try them out as a team member, and gives them an opportunity to try you out as a leader and as a company, if they really want to work there and if they really want to integrate into the team. If they're going to integrate into the team, you're going to be able to see it at 45 days. And beyond that, it's just going to be pretty much like, okay, at 45 days, we've got a very, very clear understanding that this person belongs here. But if they don't, you're not feeling that, Pay very close attention and start to dig in. Maybe a leader poorly communicated the values to the team member. Maybe a team member didn't fully explain how to do something because of their personality types clash and they don't really mesh well. Because they have completely different personalities and they just don't need those other explanations. And this person actually has a very deep need for that explanation. And so you need to find out if that's a problem. But if there are problems, they're going to come out at 45 days. And you're going to feel them as a leader, and the team is going to feel it. So if you have a team leader that this member is a part of, then you as a leader need to be communicating with that team leader and say, hey, so new team member so-and-so, how they doing? How are things looking? How are we feeling about the integration? They're like, they're doing great, man. They're on fire. They're kicking butt. They're integrating. They know the work that we're doing. They've brought these cool skills into the process we didn't have before. They brought this knowledge base that we didn't have before. They've got this experience. This is really cool. We're doing great. Or that leader says, you know what? I'm not feeling it. We're not connecting well. Actually kind of snapped at me last week, like when I told them this and they got frustrated. Pay a freaking attention, because if you don't, you'll haphazardly get to the 90-day period. You'll just kind of go beyond it and keep working because it's too hard to go back to rehiring. And what you don't realize is you're postponing the inevitable for months and months. You're allowing a poisonous team member to come into your team and to poison your team slowly for months after month after month after week after week after week because you decided to stop leading. And if you do this, you fail your team. You fail as a leader and you let everyone in your organization down. Don't do this. At 45 days, have that very, very clear check-in. Talk to the team, talk to the leader, talk to the team member themselves that's coming into your organization. Communicate clearly, get clarity, and get a complete feeling of how they're doing so that you can understand if they're just charging forwards or if there's something hindering them from being able to charge forwards, or if someone in the organization possibly didn't do their part to make sure that they were brought up to speed in the area that they needed help. And so pay attention at 45 days to be sure that they're fully locked in, we're able to do really, really well. Now, when I mentioned the weekly check-ins, so if this team member is a part of a team, then that leader is doing those weekly check-ins. I'm not saying you as the owner have to do all of those check-ins, okay? So I want to make sure that you understand that that leader is doing those check-ins, which is why you might not know about how well they're integrating into that team because you're just not a part of that, the daily operations of everything that's going on in that team. All right, so pay close attention at 45 days. As the owner, you should schedule this on your calendar. You know the day the team member starts working because you've communicated, you've talked to them about your values. Now, schedule 45 days from then, put it on your calendar just at that time so that you can make sure that you're checking in with the leader, the team, and the team member to make sure they're clicking. Then the 90-day graduation and acknowledgement and referral bonus. So if your team member was referred by someone in your organization at the 90-day graduation, when that team member officially, you need to make an official certificate and graduation of 90 days for that team member. Hey, this person, so-and-so, John, came into our organization 90 days ago. We worked through training, onboarding, processing, integration into our organization. He's killing it. He's kicking butt. This is freaking awesome. We just want to say congratulations. Give him a big round of applause. Cheer him on and bring him in saying, stand him up in front of the organization. This guy, he came in, he integrated into our team. We're excited that he's here. We're fired up about what we're going to do together in the future. Let's get after it. You can talk about some of the things that he's done at this time and some of the things he's learned and maybe ask him some comments about any of his experience so far and his team, and get his team leader involved in the conversation so that you can just really be okay, he's one of us now. And then at the end of that, it's all right. And over here, we have Christina who made the referral. She said when we were looking for the team members back when we were hiring, that she knew somebody who knew somebody, and they got that person into the interview process and freaking nailed it. And so as such, we want to pay out the referral bonus, and you take the cash right there in front of everybody in the meeting and count it out together as a team. 100, 200, 300, whatever your referral bonus is, you count it out loud in front of the team and give it to the team member and cheer together and make it cheesy and make it funny and make it a little bit awkward. If you, it always feels a little bit that way. I know it feels strange, but people value that deeply. And then they get charged up and oh my gosh, our leadership, whenever we refer somebody, they actually follow through with these referral bonuses. This is freaking ridiculous. I love working here. And they even feel that much more charged up about it. And so it's just a really cool electric thing that you can do during your meeting that can really bring people in and really helps them to integrate and just to feel that you care because you do care, that you share, that really bringing team members into the organizations is unbelievably valuable because that team member has incredible intrinsic value and they're going to be sharing that with the rest of the organization, helping you grow together. So bring them in, 90-day period. Make sure you go through all of these steps. Just real quickly, I'm going to go through them again. Do the values dump and get complete alignment. That's 3 to 4 sessions, at least in the first 2 weeks. Make sure you spend a lot of time around this. Do the policies and the procedures alignment. That's 2. The third thing is make sure you assign books to enhance their understanding of some of the things, the principles, the ideas, the values that you've been communicating. That's 3. And 4, do the weekly check-ins. Have your leader do a weekly check-in, casual conversation. We're just talking through how they're doing, how they're feeling, making sure they're understanding everything. 5, there is the 45-day rule. Make sure you pay attention as the ultimate leader at the 45-day point of the ultimate hiring person. Make sure you're paying very close attention at that point, because if there are goblins, they're going to be in the work process or in the integration. They're going to be showing up at that time. Pay close attention, watch out, and deal with them at that time. If you have to end up in separation, you have to act at that time. Otherwise, you're going to be allowing poison into your team, and that's going to do it long term. Anything that poisons the team long term inhibits their effectiveness. Don't allow that to be a part of your reality. Be a great leader. All right. And then the 6th thing is the 90-day graduation and acknowledgement. Make sure you do that. Make sure you do the referral bonus. Make it cheesy. Make it awesome. Build some electricity into that meeting, and just make it a really fun event and where the team members feel loved because they are loved, and do a great job leading that for your whole organization. And you will have so much better results. You will eliminate gaps in clarity. You will eliminate the need to rehire. You will energize your team, helping them understand the values behind your company, and you will energize your team to help them understand that bringing on team members is super valuable, and you give that a referral bonus out. I mean, all of this thing, it's just such a fulfilling thing to see a team member to come in your organization and truly prosper. And it helps them, makes their life better, makes your life better, makes the team members' lives better, and your company ultimately growing and scaling forward. It's just an awesome, exciting part of operating a business. So I just wanted to help someone out there maybe who's gone through the hiring process and been terribly frustrated afterwards when it just hasn't worked out, or when they let a poisonous person stay in too long when they should have acted earlier. If this has helped you in some way, shape, or form, please share it with somebody you know. Share it with an entrepreneur, a business leader, or a hiring manager, or team leader that may need this information to help them to understand how they can remove or just step over some of the thresholds that's keeping them from being able to integrate their team successfully into their company, integrate new team members into their organization. And so please like and subscribe, hit the notifications bell. So thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. I help teams integrate and businesses grow. If you want more of that and content just like that, like, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell, and I'll see you in the next video.